Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. This is your subscriber video for Sunday, October 8th. Okay, so this is what we are looking at right now in terms of the forecast and the price action for the last week. We got a high in the prior target box on September 29th, and that was actually not technically in the prior target box, but just a few points off. And then we had a sell-off following our yellow arrow, our yellow forecast area. And then we got a big Friday pump that took price all the way back up to the white magic level here at 15,120-ish on the NQ. So to net it all out, really, there's still no update to the forecast. We don't have enough information to judge this current target box here, which starts October 9th and finishes October 13th. We'll wait and see if that we need some more price information, of course, before we can give ourselves a grade on this. But in general, I'm going to be leaving the timing area for this box the same and making some minor adjustments to price today. Okay, so when we go and take a look at the major indexes, we can see the strength that is in the NQ compared to the other major indexes. So we can see that just by looking at price in this Venus interval 1 relative to the prior interval 6. The interval 6 low was down here at 14,260, and the lowest price so far in this interval is like 14,584. So the magic levels here are providing some very good support. There's a magic level right at 14,580, and that has been tested twice, almost you could say 3 times so far in this Venus interval so far. But it's a very different story when you look at the other extreme, and that's RTY, the mid-market stocks. You can see how price is way below the prior Venus interval 1, and it's following a much steeper Ganfan wedge down. Again, sell all pops in this until we get a breakthrough of this 1x2 down. So I really think that we're going to come back and retest this area here on RTY around 1700. That's where we've seen some support before. And it feels like, just given the strength of the sell-off here, we're not seeing signs of a bottom yet, even though we got 3 good wicks below this 8x1 Ganfan on the week. I'd like to see some more evidence of a bottom forming, as shown by price closing above one of these downward sloping Ganfans. Now, if we go and take a look at ES is kind of in the middle. The S&P 500 minis, E-mini futures. We got a wick down below the prior interval 1 low at 4263. So we've got a number of wicks down there, but we haven't seen any closes below that level yet. Basically the takeaway here is you can, if you're smart about choosing the index that you want to trade for a given bias, certainly if you've got a bullish bias, the obvious tactic is to trade NQ. If you've got a bearish bias, the obvious tactic is to trade RTY or the Russell 2000 mid-market stocks. And of course, in between, we've got the ES, which is declining, but it found some support here on this red 4x1 down. And I think that was anchored to the all-time high. All right, so that's the takeaway there. Looking ahead to this week, let's go back to NQ and take a look at what's coming up here. So I noted previously that we've got, let's drop down to a 30-minute. I noted previously that we've got the moon entering Virgo, and that was a trigger for a bearish move down back in September. So here we are again a month later. We've got moon about to enter Virgo. And let's go and take a look at, so we've got the time trades indicator here. It's about to repaint, and there it is, Moon entering Virgo on October 10th. Now, the other thing that's interesting is Moon is going to be joining up with Venus. Venus enters Virgo on the on Sunday night. That's tonight, October 8th at about 9:30 p.m. ish on Sunday the 8th. So we've got Venus entering Virgo, and then Moon joins it there on Tuesday the 10th at around 8 a.m. And the moon's going to be in Virgo for about 3 days or so until it leaves and goes into Libra. Now, this is very interesting overlap with our existing target box here. Now, not sure if you remember, but back in September, if we go back to September 14th, we had something similar. In this case, it was Mercury and Sun that was in Virgo and not not Venus. So this is kind of an interesting, I guess, analog that I'm tracking here. We had the moon enter Virgo back on September 13th, and it joined Mercury and the Sun there. We had a good size move up until late in its time in Virgo, and then in the last portion of it, there was a big pump there. We can throw a fib time zone on here and see if there's anything interesting with respect to when that drop happened. It looked like it started right at about the 3/4 mark. So my point in mentioning this is that we have an interesting analog here for the last time the moon was in Virgo. It turned out to be quite bearish, but that doesn't mean you go out and buy puts on the day that the moon enters Virgo. There was actually a bullish pump for a while, and then the bearishness happened really late in the cycle. So that's something to keep in mind as we look at this current cycle here. Now, I've got other reasons for the target box to be in to be in this time period where it is. We've got some speed cycles that are landing right around this time as well. So we're going to be watching that, but definitely watch this this cycle here with Virgo and the moon and Mercury being in Virgo, especially late. It could make for some interesting price action on the 11th or 12th late in this cycle. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to be doing here is updating this price box. And I want to allow for a higher low. So I think it's likely that we're going to see a low in this time period for multiple reasons that I've talked about in the past. It's basically the first half of the eclipse cycle. We've got this speed index that I'm tracking internally. I haven't really explained what that is yet, but I do think there's a possibility that we could see a higher low here and find some support around this anchored VWAP around the 14,800 level. Certainly the NQ is the most bullish of the three major indexes we track. So we need to account for a higher low. Things probably will be different on the ES and the Russell. Okay, so that's the update to the forecast there. Now, let's go and take a look at time trades. And I want to go over some of the new work that I've been doing for you in time trades. So you may notice that the QQQ forecast is a little bit cleaner. I've added a few new data points into the time trades machine learning, and you can see these over here on the influencers. If we go to influencers for QQQ, there's a new one here called Synodic Degree Count Since Pivot. Now, this is based on the work of Brad Cowan. And Brad wrote a number of trading books. A lot of his work is based on heliocentric cycles and synodic cycles, which is the same kind of cycle that the Venus intervals are. And you can see how influential that new data point is for both pivots and moves. So basically, all I'm doing with this is I'm counting the number of synodic cycles that land on any given day, and these are anchored to a prior pivot, and that's what the since pivot means. So there's a number of different synodic pairs that I'm tracking, and tracking the movement of those synodic pairs, like, say, for example, Jupiter-Uranus or Jupiter-Saturn. And when and because there's multiple pairs, we can get multiple synodic cycles landing on a given day. So I'm just counting those. Okay, and you can see how influential those are. 3.5, 3.4. This is a rank. So the smaller number means the more important it is. It's a rank out of 100. So this is basically in the top 3 percentile of the most influential cycles. And that's part of the reason why you see cleaner cycles on the QQQ. All right. I added a few others as well. We added Mercury helio speed max delta. Okay, so what is this? When you track the speed of Mercury heliocentrically, this is in degrees per day, it reaches a certain maximum, and the delta is just the difference from that maximum helio speed. And you can see that, it's in the top 5 for most influential on the pivots. Okay. And the third one is right here, number 11, Mercury-Mars geoseparation. Now, I've had Mercury-Venus geoseparation in the system for a while. Mercury-Mars is actually a discovery from Tunnel Through the Air, and that is very influential here for pivots. It's not used at all for moves, okay? So there you go. There's 3 complicated books. One from Brad Cowan, one from George Beyer, one from W.D. Gann, Tunnel Through the Air, of course, and those learnings are distilled here in Time Trades. Okay, so that's the update there for the Qs. We can go back to the chart and take a look at what the machine learning is telling us. We've got a peak pivot here in the Qs on October 19th. So before we make any conclusions here, we can go and take a look at NDX. I like to look at multiple indexes to see what kind of patterns exist. So on NDX, again, we've got a pivot October 16th to 20th, a pivot zone there, okay? We can take a look at SPY. SPY has a pivot coming up October 12th. So that's right in our green target zone. And we can take a look at SPX. SPX has a pivot October 12th, again, similar to SPY, right in our green target zone. And we can take a look at DJI. DJI has really no discernible pivot here, just a teeny tiny 6% that I'm just going to ignore on October 9th. Yeah, when it comes to interpreting these machine learning pivots, what we're seeing is a pattern of SPX and SPY pivoting on October 12th, and the Qs and NDX pivoting October 19th and October 16th in that area. So I don't think that changes our forecast much at all with respect to the green box here. I'm going to be sticking with this timing here between basically for the week. So we've got Monday the 9th, Tuesday the 10th, Wednesday the 11th, Thursday the 12th. That's really the location of the target box here for our low, and it aligns with the moon in Virgo as well. Okay, so we're going to leave the timing there. We've adjusted the price. That's all good. And we've adjusted the price to align with this anchored VWAP. If we zoom out here, we can see where that VWAP is anchored. So where did I anchor that guy? It's the low on April 25th. So there we go. And we can see how that anchored VWAP provided very nice support over here on August 18th. And prices struggled to separate below it since then, basically for the last 2 weeks. September 26th through last Friday, there have been wicks and minor closes behind it, but it hasn't really separated below that anchored VWAP. So this is a very important level. We know the market is watching that. Okay, so that's the update for indexes. Let's go and take a look at Bitcoin. No, that's not the right one. Where is Bitcoin? This is the Bitcoin one I want to show. Okay, so when it comes to Bitcoin, what I want to look at here is this green line is really halfway between the 2x1 up and the 1x1 up. So all I did was just kind of measure halfway between the 2x1 and 1x1. And I did that on 2 different points and dragged a ray between those. And we can see how Bitcoin is tracking that in the upper half of this Ganfan wedge. So that's all good. But I do want to draw your attention to something that a Time Trades user, Margot Amala, discovered. And this is based on using the eclipse season. Now, eclipse season is an indicator in Time Trades. And when we turn that on, we can see generally when the eclipses happen. Now, this isn't precise to the day because this is based on the speed of the moon. It's not based on when there's an eclipse. So it's kind of when the gravitational alignment between Earth, Moon, and Sun starts to get strong enough that the moon slows down and especially the vertical or declination movement of the moon slows down, then that's generally eclipse season. And when eclipse season is over, certainly we've had the 2 eclipses and the moon starts to move a little faster, that gravitational locking effect is reduced. Okay, so here we are in eclipse season, and what Margot has done, which is really cool, is she's gone back in time and taken a look at prior eclipses and noticed that there's a pattern of Bitcoin either replicating the prior price pattern or inverting it in the prior eclipse season. So she's conveniently put this bar pattern here. The upper blue bars are a replication of the last eclipse season. The lower blue bars are inverted. And based on the recent price action, she just tweeted earlier today that it looks like we are tracking the inversion here, and that if that continues to hold true, then we would be looking for a low later on in the eclipse season before things get unstuck and price starts flowing again. So this is something to be aware of, and this can certainly help us interpret the probabilities in time trades. So if we go over to time trades here and take a look at Bitcoin. So we've got an increasing probability of moves here, and you'll notice that the recent additions to the machine learning has improved the Bitcoin forecast. There's a lot more signal, a lot less noise. It's a little bit easier to interpret. Unfortunately, not every stock is the same as Bitcoin, and I'll give you an example of that shortly. But if we look at Bitcoin here, we can see we've got a ramping up of probability of moves. And this is coming up later in eclipse season. And so based on Margot's analysis and this ramping up of probability of moves, we can anticipate this to be a move down. Now, that doesn't mean that you go out and short Bitcoin today based on that. We don't want to trade based on anticipation. Wait for confirmation. And be ready for this, but definitely wait for confirmation using price levels and price action. Okay, so that's the update for Bitcoin. Let's go and take a look at gold. Now, gold is unfortunately one of those symbols that did not see a great improvement in the pivot signal with the leptest additional fields in it. So that's something I need to work on because I'm trading gold a little bit more these days. And I know that there's many time traded customers that also trade gold quite a bit. But what we do see is we are in a broad time frame here of high probabilities of 1.5 standard deviation moves. Now, this does not mean that they're all going to be in the same direction. Sometimes we can get pivots in the middle of this. So let me show you something interesting with respect to the analysis here on gold and how the fact that the pivot's not giving us super useful information really shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't prevent you from being able to take some good trades with respect to gold. So one of the things I talked about last week on gold was how it's coming down and approaching this 1x1 down, right? And the last 2 times it's touched the 1x1 down, we've had really good bounces. So these 1x1s are really important levels, okay? And we've touched the 1x1 here, and actually we touched it 3 times this week, 1, 2, 3. And on Friday, we got a very nice strong bounce. Now, one of the things I want to show you here is this orange dotted line, because this is a powerful technique, and I can show you how this works with respect to Venus intervals too. So let me just turn off GANFAN so it's a little bit more clear. So we'll turn those off. All right, now I'll show you how I created these. Basically, these are using the cyclic line tool, okay? So if you go over here to cycles and use the cyclic line tool, all I did was click on the first high here and the second high here, okay? And then that's how we get this third one, and I was off by a day. And then you do the same thing going backwards, okay? So you click on the second high, and then you click on the first high, and then you get cyclic lines going backwards in time as well, okay? So what's interesting here is that we've got this high to high pattern occurring right in Venus interval 1, and that cycle concludes right during this current Venus interval 1 right now on October 6th. Now, these are static cycles. These are fixed cycles, X number of days, whatever it is. Now, if you go back in time, you can see something interesting here about how static cycles tend to become less useful over time. And with the Venus interval indicator, you can see why. So we've got this static cycle, and it's landing here at the end of Venus interval 1. It's pretty accurate. It's within about 2 days of a high, so that's not too bad. But you'll notice that as we go back in time, the accuracy goes down. Okay. So here's the next instance of that cycle landing. It's maybe 3 days after the high. So we keep going back in time. So now you'll notice that the fixed nature of the cycle has it landing deeper and deeper into Venus interval 2, and it's missing out the high. Now this is like, I don't know, 10 days or something. So the cycle accuracy is getting worse and worse. So if we go back some more, we can see here, I mean, this one got a cycle high on Venus interval 2, but if we're just using the Venus interval 1 highs, it's off by about a month, right? So you can see how static cycles, and people that use static cycles always mention to watch out for expansion and contraction of cycles. You can actually see that expansion and contraction of cycles here using the time trades Venus intervals, and what's interesting is the Venus intervals actually give more accurate cycles, because we can see the tendency of major inflection points in gold to occur during Venus interval ones, and the use of static cycles is good when you're really close to the source of the cycle, but over time that stretching and contracting of the actual cycle, which in this case is the Venus synodic cycle, creates error that adds up, and that error becomes worse and worse over time the further you get away from the anchor points to the cycle. So the next time we get a Venus interval 1 come along, we will refresh the anchor points to the cycle, and we'll be able to get an accurate point there. So anyways, wanted to share that with you. And the interesting thing here is we were able to take a trade using just GAN fans and this cycle technique in gold, and that's we got a good entry, good low risk entry with a stop very close to the GAN fan. If we turn on GAN fan interval 1s again, this is how you know you get a great entry, is when you can get a very small stop and then an immediate move in your direction. So at times it looked like an exercise in knife catching last week. However, we did get the turn, and unfortunately with the news, geopolitical news coming out of Israel over the weekend, it looks like gold's going to have a good week coming up, although I hate to trade on the basis of war and other people's pain and injury. So but it does look like it's a good setup for gold, at least in the short term. Okay, so that's it for me. I'd like to thank you all for using time trades. I appreciate you. Please feel free to reach out to me and send me your feedback, thoughts, and ideas. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye now.